or the recorded versions. Thing is, one might question what is the purpose of doing something like this in English, when in fact our Lord Buddha, Shastrun Vahanse, if there was a language that was most appropriate, most suitable to preach this Dhamma, he selected that language, and that was Shuddha Magadhi, which you will have heard of. But the reality is, in today's world, the most commonly used language is English. And so there are a lot of people that do a lot to promote Buddhism and the Lord Buddha's teaching, benefit all humankind. And therefore it is our duty to try our best. It's not easy, it never is easy, to try and convey his message in not just our usual medium, that is Sinhala, but also in English, and quite possibly in future maybe some other languages as well, maybe Hindi. And I'm informed that some of the monks that ordained along with us recently are versed in other languages such as Hindi, Italian, and actually we're also looking for someone who might be well versed in Tamil. But it's not just the command of the language that's important, it's the understanding of the Dhamma. And it's when the two come together, you can convey this message with its true meaning and the true power that lies within. So, this is the first time we are doing this sort of thing at this place, and you are the first few people, or you are the pioneers who are taking part. Useful, spread the word in future. But before we get started, as is customary for us, it's not just human beings that you and I can see through our physical eyes that listen to this Deshana. There are also the celestial beings that we don't see with our eyes. And so it is our duty to invite them wholeheartedly to come here, to take what they can, to try and apply this Dhamma to their existence, to their experiences, because this Dhamma is universal. It's not limited to any particular kind of existence. You and I, we are human beings, but this Dhamma applies equally to all kinds of beings, gods, Brahmas, and even those beings that are in the apayas, the hells. But it is quite unfortunate that those in the apayas and animals, it's too late for them. They are not able to understand this Dhamma. They can hear the Dhamma, well, certainly the animals, but they can't understand this because they don't have the wisdom to do that. That makes you special, and I'll explain that a little bit more as we go further. What makes you special? In fact, it's a question you should be asking yourself. How are you any different to animals? If all you do day in, day out is the same that they do, what's the meaning of our existence? Do we attain, do we gain anything that they don't? So let's ask ourselves that question today. But before we get started, let's invite the Devas and the Brahmas, and also spare a moment for those relatives of yours you've passed along your way in samsara. Anyone who's helped you in any way, shape or form, whether that is by offering you a glass of water or showing you the path to get somewhere, or by offering you some Dhamma. And that might not necessarily have been the Dhamma that helps you to attain Nibbana, but it is something that helped you along the way. So as I recite the the Gatha, to invite the Devas. Can I ask you to do the same within yourself as well? Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachanti Devata Sadhamman Munirajasasa Sunantu Saggamukkadham Dhamma Savana Kale Ayam Bhavanta Dhamma Savana Kale Ayam Bhavanta Dhamma Savana Kale Ayam Bhavanta. Oftentimes when I try and explain concepts of the Tathagata in English, I have to try and refer to the Sinhala terms or the Pali terms, and then try and explain that, or try and translate it into English. It's always a struggle, I've got to say, but I do try and do it. And I think some of our listeners, because actually there are people joining us over Skype and on the web radio from over 20 odd countries, and some of them they don't know a word of Sinhala, native English speakers, and I think sometimes they're put off when I try and use a lot of English, a lot of Sinhala. So I'm going to try and refrain from doing that and use more English and maybe one or two words in Sinhala or Pali. But the thing is, if for example, I can sense that there are people here who might benefit from me referring to the Sinhala term, I think there's still value in doing that, because my hope is that, at least for some of you, Sinhala might not be your first language, but you'll pick up these terms in Sinhala, and if you understand the English meaning behind it, then once the meaning of the word settles in your mind, you can then refer to it and make more sense of it as you go further. Okay. So the question I asked at the start was, what is the meaning of our existence? How are you and I, being human beings, any different to animals? Let's take the life or the existence of an animal, for example. I mean, there are 2 dogs in the monastery. I've been here for 2 days now, and as far as I can see, they wake up in the morning. They're usually up by the time I get up, and then they wait for some food to be offered to them, which they take, and then go for a walk, have a run around, maybe chase a cat or a rat. They go looking for other dogs just to keep themselves busy. And then again towards the afternoon they'll wait for someone to throw some food away, go and consume that. And then towards the later part of the day, when they're tired, maybe get some sleep, wake up again. But if you actually look at the existence or that lifespan of an animal, a dog, do they do anything more than eating, sleeping, drinking, and having sex? Do they do anything more than that? Think for a moment. So eating, sleeping, drinking, and then reproducing. Procreating, making more of their kind. The thing is, you and I, we do more than that, yes. What do we do? Well, we do jobs. Why? So that we can do the other things even better. I mean, that is why we do a job. So we can eat better, we can sleep better, we can drink better, and we can reproduce and, do that better. So, it seems to me, and it has felt like this for a long time, that there is very little actually that differentiates human beings from animals if we don't do any different to how we normally operate our lives. Now, some people, obviously most people have ambitions, right? Even among yourselves, I'm sure there will be doctors, there will be engineers, teachers, lawyers, scientists, mathematicians. You have ambitions, you have goals. And you set these goals at a certain stage of your life. So, as soon as you go to school, your parents sometimes set some goals for you. Do the best you can, get the best grades you can. Then go to university, come out of university, graduate, get a job, earn as much money as you can, build a house or buy a house, settle down, start a family, have kids, retire, survive on your pension as best as you can. If you're lucky, your kids look after you. If you don't, you still continue looking after them. And then, after a while, it's time to say goodbye. So when you're on your deathbed, what have you actually saved up for yourself? What is it that you take with you when you say goodbye, when you say your goodbyes? This is a question I asked my parents. When I explained to them, I have, for all those goals and ambitions that you set me when I was growing up, I now have one of my own. I want to ordain. I want to try something different in life, because as far as I can see, and quite frankly, I asked them a question and said, give me an honest answer, right? Let's be frank, let's be open and honest. Let's have a dialogue, because you're educated, you've educated me, thankfully. So let's have an intelligent conversation. And I asked them the question: everything we do to be happy, right? Yeah, we do so we can be happy. And your parents before that, yeah, they did the same. Okay, great. So the jobs you did, the education that you took, all of these things you did to be happy. Yes. Okay, great. Now I look at them today, in their late 50s, early 60s, but as far as I can see, they've got all sorts of aches and pains, ailments, diseases, you name it, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, high cholesterol, you name it, they've got it. I mean, my poor dad, he did a lot for me and my brother. He dedicated his entire life for us. And to this date he still does. Because although I've taken this path in life, my brother is still in their care. The thing is, they're at that point in life where unless they do something now, it's going to be too late for them. Why? Because any time after now, as in, they're in their mid-60s now actually, my dad is. a change in his lifestyle after now is going to be too late because he's going to be bedridden soon. So what is he going to gain even if he won the lottery today? For all the education that he's had, for all the doctorates that he's had, that he's been able to achieve, what has he actually gained out of his life's existence? So I asked him the question, if all you've been looking for is happiness, have you found this happiness that you've been looking for today? So they have a think and then they say, well, actually, no, we haven't. Okay. So I said, let's think about your parents, as in my grandparents. My grandparents are in a very sad state today. I mean, they're looked after, yes, but physically, one of my grandparents, one of my grandmothers, she's got dementia. So how much happiness can she actually get out of her existence? No matter what you take her, the physical things, food. So this is the things we do, right? When you live abroad and you come to Sri Lanka, what do? You bring gifts for your friends and family, chocolates and all of these things, because you think that's what makes them happy, and then you give it to them. I mean, my parents do the same. I used to do the same. But the thing is, none of that makes my grandparents happy now. Not really happy. So I asked my parents the question, well, if you're not happy, your parents aren't happy, and quite possibly their parents before that, why do you think I should do exactly what you did? Being, have a good education, go to university, graduate, get a job, settle down, buy a home, have kids. That's exactly what you did. That's exactly what your parents did, and the parents before them. So clearly there's a technical fault somewhere, and you want me to do the same? If you have children, right? If you saw your child playing or about to play with fire, they've never seen fire before. Imagine there's a candle lit in front of you. Your child's walking up to it and they want to touch the fire or the flame. Your immediate reaction is going to be, what? Have a play with it, see what happens? Or you're just going to pull them back? You're going to pull them away from it. Why? Because you know that it's going to burn. It's going to hurt. So you've got that experience. You've made that mistake before, and now you want to prevent that from happening to your children. Well, if you do that with something as simple as touching fire, what about this one chance you get at life? Should you not be a little bit more careful about the advice and the guidance that you give your children? And I also asked my parents, well, the education that they worked hard to give me, that actually took me very far in life. In fact, I'll share some of my experience with you, because you're probably wondering, why did you ordain? That's a question I get a lot of the time. They look at me, they ask me, how old are you? And they ask me, well, okay, you've been in the UK, you settled down, yeah, all of that. And then he goes, well, why did you ordain? It sounds like you had everything you could ever, anyone could ever ask for. Well, actually, did I? So yes, I went to university, I graduated, I got a job in a bank. It's called the Royal Bank of Scotland. I think it's one of the 5 largest banks in the world, as a technology architect, solutions architect. So technology was my field. I joined the bank on the graduate program after having graduated in networks engineering. The reason I'm giving you my profile is not because I'm not trying to boast myself. What I'm trying to explain to you is why I didn't find the happiness that I was looking for in these worldly achievements. That most people think, happiness is in these things. Alongside that, I had a successful and happy married life. And today, along with me, my wife is back in Sri Lanka, or my wife when I was a lay person, and she will be getting ordained soon as well. So she was a teacher with the local council. So, we had stable jobs. We bought a house together. Thankfully, we didn't have kids. I say thankfully because that might have been one challenge or one step on our journey too far. If after that we had decided, actually, you know what, let's go try and get ordained, because then you have to, obviously, you have duties and responsibilities when you have children. I remember my manager at my workplace saying, in the 14 years that he'd been at the bank, he'd never seen someone progress in their career as quickly. In the 5 years I spent at the Royal Bank of Scotland, I got 3 promotions, and apparently that's quite unusual. But then I explained to him why that has been the case, because I tell him it's nothing special about me. It never is. It's about the way we apply ourselves. It's about the principles that we apply in whatever we do. Before I came across Shastran Vahanse's Dhamma, taking an extra 15 minutes in my lunch break didn't matter so much to me. I was like, so what? Who cares? The bank's got a lot of money. Bringing home a pen that was stationery that was available for use at the bank, so what? The bank's got plenty of it. But after I came across Shastran Vahanse's Dhamma, my Lord Buddha's Dhamma, I realized the gravity of doing things like that we for granted. Doesn't make it any less of a sin. Just because where you are taking it from has plenty of it, doesn't make it any less of a sin. When I understood how beings that commit pranagata, which is killing, adinadana, which is theft or stealing, kame samichachara, which is misconduct. Today it's translated to sexual misconduct, is what you read in textbooks, but there's a much, much deeper meaning to it. In fact, it's one of the most difficult precepts to observe. We'll talk about it if not today, in a future deshana. Why there's so much more to kame samichachara than just I refrain from, kame samichachara veramani sikkhapadana samadhi. Why there's so much more to it than I refrain from engaging in sexual misconduct. And all of these precepts that we observe, we think that, so what, it's just a little here, just a little there, it makes no difference. When I realized how beings suffer in the aparas, one thing, so when we did a deshana in Australia, and I asked the children there, I gave them an exercise. I said, when you get home, ask your parents to, if you need parental guidance, because I don't know how the laws operate there, in terms of videos and watching content online. Get your parents to show you a video of hell on YouTube. So you just type in hell and see what comes up. Now, having listened to that deshana, I think some children had done the same in other countries in the world as well. And one of the mothers came to me and said, my daughter asked me to show her what apayas were like, a video of that on YouTube, and I think she's 8, 9, and then they had shown the video, and she had, just after watching that, she said to her mother, "Ammi, I promise you I will never do anything like that ever again. I will never commit any of the paspao, the 5, I will never break any of the 5 precepts ever again." Because the thing is, people do these things when they don't realize the consequences of what happens. But the thing is, I'm sure you'll have listened to plenty of Deshana, both in Sinhala and English. And everyone talks about, do not commit akusal. But it's one thing to understand the Dhamma and then not have a need to do it, and it's another to try and control yourself, to try and refrain yourself from doing it. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone said, there's a bag full of coins, there's a bag full of gold coins. Okay, so someone comes and whispers in your ear, there's a bag full of gold coins that's under the ground, it's somewhere around here. There isn't, by the way. Otherwise, tomorrow morning, by the time we wake up, the whole place will be dug up. And then Viharadipati Swaminathan will kick us out of here. Imagine someone said there's a bag full of gold coins that's in the ground, and it's got a lot of value. It's gold. I mean, clearly you can sell it to someone. You can make money out of it. Now, you then recall a story that you had read in the newspaper, but no one else has seen this, but you have. The story in this newspaper where you read, apparently there was a, how there was a cartoon, or was it a cartoon movie called Charlie's Chocolate Factory or something like that? So it's where they have this, in fact, actually you find these sweets, chocolate, but just wrapped in gold foil, and they look like coins, either pound coins or dollar coins or whatever, right? You'll find these in all kinds of countries. Maybe they have rupee coins here, I don't know. So chocolate. Now you read this newspaper, you recall this story where there was a lorry or some kind of transport that was taking chocolate from a factory to a shop, and then it had an accident, and some bags had fallen out of this van, let's say, or lorry, and the kids in the locality, they'd taken some of these away, and apparently that happened close to Anuradhapura. Now, it's also a kid that comes and tells you, "Oh, auntie, or uncle, I found this bag of gold coins, and I hid it somewhere, in the monastery grounds." Now, obviously, clearly the kid doesn't know that. All he sees is it's gold. It looks like gold, clearly, and he's hidden it in the ground. But if you now had that knowledge that actually this is just chocolate, you wouldn't feel you would have no desire to go digging for it, because this has no value or very little value at all. But if you took that person's word for it, or that child's word for it, and you thought, actually, yeah, this is gold, so I have no reason to not believe what this child says. From the moment you hear that, the one thing that's going to be in your mind is, where might that gold be? And you're then completely restless until you go and find it. So the thing is, what I want to convey by using that example is this happiness is a little bit like that. The way the concept of happiness that has been given to us growing up as young children is that it's something that you need to go after. You need to pursue happiness. In fact, there's a movie called The Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if you watched it. You go after it, you go looking for it, and then you find it. Whereas Shastranvan says interpretation of happiness, or the word that he uses, ashva there, is entirely different. It's not something you go after. In fact, you can only achieve happiness if you have an unhappiness or a sadness or a sorrow that you need to pacify. Let me give you an example. Does eating make you happy? Does eating, or the fan up there, so it's blowing wind on you, does that make you, is that a pleasurable feeling? Is it always a pleasurable feeling, or is it only a pleasurable feeling if it's hot? What if it was really cold? Your reaction would then be, who the hell's put this, who switched this fan on? What were they thinking? It's cold outside, just go and switch the damn thing off, is what you're going to be thinking. Why? Well, if the fan was what gave you happiness, or the cold wind that gives you happiness, nothing's changed. So this happiness is something, so it's not in the fan, it's not in the cold wind that comes and rubs against your body or hits your body. What if, we use heaters back in the UK or in Australia and other countries where you have winter, the winter season. When do you enjoy having the heaters on? In the summer? No, you only enjoy having them on in the winter. Why? Because then you want, this cold is now the problem, and you want that cold to go away, and therefore you switch the heaters on. You're looking for warmth, you're looking for heat. And then you say, that feels good. When that warm air hits your body and it's cold outside, you say that feels good. But at that time, if you switch the air conditioning on and you got a blast of cold wind, that sends a shiver up your spine and goes, switch that thing off, please. So clearly, happiness or that pleasurable feeling does not exist in that physical object or in that entity. So where does it exist then? How does one feel that? How does one feel pleasure? Isn't pleasure something that can only be felt when there's a need for it? Isn't food? Doesn't food only give you a good feeling when you're hungry? What if when you're full? Does food give you the same pleasurable feeling then? So then is pleasure something that exists within food? What about if you're thirsty? People say, I could kill for a glass of water. Sometimes when you're really thirsty, you say that. But if you were really, if you were drenched in water and you had plenty of it, and someone said, would you like any more water? No, thank you much, I'm really full. So you can't take that same level of pleasure from water or food when you don't have a need for it. So this need is something that has to exist for us to enjoy any level of pleasure from any outside object. If you have a headache, you take paracetamol, right? That makes you feel good. when the headache disappears, when it starts fading away, that makes you feel good. So why do you not just take paracetamol when you don't have a headache? I mean, if that makes you feel good. It doesn't, because there is no headache to go away. There is no pain to go away. There is no pain to dissipate. It's the pain that goes away that gives you that good feeling. So the point being here, and I've been using a few examples to try and explain, is that this pleasure, this happiness, this good feeling that we've been looking for throughout our life, and certainly throughout my lifetime, is a cure, is a treatment for a pain, a physical or mental discomfort that I have been experiencing. People go on holiday. I used to go on holiday once a year, and usually I come to Sri Lanka. So how do we, I mean, clearly, you guys go on holiday as well. So how do you go on holiday? You work hard, you save up, you put money into a bank account called the holiday savings account, right? Every month you put some money towards it, and as you get nearer, closer and closer to the date, you start, saving bits and pieces, right? Putting every penny you can into that savings account. So you're working really hard for this now. And then you go on holiday. You then go, you enjoy, whatever it is you do, you go and spend time by the beach, or go on a trip, whatever the case might be. And then you come back and say, oh, you had a really good and relaxing time. Why did you need a relaxing time? Well, clearly, you've been stressing yourself out trying to save up for your holiday. You've been stressing yourself up trying to work hard so you can save up all those hours. Particularly if you work shifts. You do a shift here, you do a shift there, so you can save all of those shifts together, so you can either take a weekend off, or a week off, or a month off. And that's how my parents, when they used to work shifts, used to save up for holidays. Not just money, but even time. So, but then, if you say I asked you to go on holiday every day, would that bring you the same amount of pleasure as it does when you go once a year? Here's another question. Can you name one or two popular holiday destinations? Come on, you've all been on holiday. Name one or two popular holiday destinations. Okay, we all know Sri Lanka. Give me one or two more. Sorry? Nilaveli. What about some countries? Popular countries for holidays? Well, clearly Australia is one. Right? People go, where else do people go? Singapore? Malaysia? Thailand, yeah? Dubai, yes? Very popular. So in all of those countries that you just named, if I went to each of those countries and asked people there, where do you go on holiday? What do you think they'd say? If I went to Dubai and asked, citizens of Dubai, apparently Dubai is a holiday destination. It's the number one on the charts for holidays. So clearly, if you want to go on holiday, if you want a break, you don't go anywhere, right? I mean, you're there. What do you think they're going to say? No way. We go somewhere else. They'll say we go either, some other country. They might say I go to the UK or to America. Or somewhere else where it's not so hot. Iceland or Finland or Norway or somewhere else. But then hang on a second. I thought when we drew up that list of top holiday destinations, Dubai was number one. So if people if Dubai was our number one holiday destination, people in Dubai don't need to really go anywhere for holiday. They should just all be there. So then we should then surely come to the conclusion that this pleasure that we seek in holiday does not exist in Dubai. It does not exist in Australia. It does not exist in Singapore or in Thailand or Malaysia or even in Ilaveli or Sri Lanka. Because otherwise people in those countries should not be going anywhere on holiday. They should just be wherever they are. So clearly we've got it wrong somewhere. Have you ever stopped to think about this? But we do spend a lot of money going on holiday, don't we? I mean, holiday is a big industry. And I'm sure globally as well, but also in the UK. It's a massive industry. By the time you get to school term breaks, usually July. Is it July? Yeah? July, August time. A few weeks before that. That's all people talk about. At work, when you go to see friends, that's all they talk about. Where are you going on holiday? How much have you saved up? And then, people just love talking about holidays. But people never talk about why they have to go on holiday. When I talk to our kids, and we usually have these discussions, I ask them, if you tell me that you eat because it gives you pleasure, you should only have to eat when you want to eat. If you had to do something when you didn't want to do it, that can't be something that gives you pleasure. Are you with me? Let me try and explain it. How long can you survive without food? Most people maybe a few days, a week, and then after that you have to take some food. But people these days, the way that we eat food is like, this is what God put us on this planet for, to eat. For those people that believe that, God created the world and everything in it. This is what God put us in this world for, to eat, to satisfy our tongues and taste. Okay, then if you're saying that you eat for pleasure, surely you should have a choice about it. Okay, then stop eating and show me. And then a few days on, they go, now I'm hungry, I have to eat. Well, I thought you just do it for pleasure. When you go to the library, or you have books at home. Okay, let me put it this way. If I asked you, what's your hobby? People have various hobbies, right? Some people collect stamps. Some people, play an instrument. Some people might dance, sing. Why is that a hobby? It's because you have a choice about it. You say it's a hobby because it gives you pleasure. It's something you do, to break the rhythm. When all you do day in, day out is wake up, go to work or go to school, come back home, have your meals, look after the kids and go to bed, and you want to break that rhythm, you pick up a hobby. You do something a little bit different to give you that variety. But now you have a choice about it, and that's why it gives you a good feeling. It gives you pleasure. What if you had no choice about it? All of the things I just stated above, you have no choice. Such as waking up, going to school, going to work, eating, cooking, sleeping. You have no choice about it. If you are born a human being, if you have this physical form, for its sustenance, for its maintenance, you have to do all of these things. But yet, we try and seek satisfaction out of these things. We are looking for satisfaction in the wrong places. That's the problem. We are looking for satisfaction in the places where actually the reason we are doing those things is because there's a need for it in the first place. If that need didn't exist, are you really telling me you would go to work? If that need didn't exist for you to pay your mortgage, pay your rent, pay your bills, pay your taxes, send your kids to schools, pay their school fees, are you really telling me you'd go to work? Would you not just rather spend your time at home with your friends and family? Are you really telling me you would want to cook if actually all your meals were cooked for you? I mean, a king, right? In his kingdom, he can do whatever the hell he likes, right? Does he ever go and cook? He doesn't go to the kitchen and cook. Why? I mean, if he wanted, he could do it. No, because, all his food is cooked for him. So he doesn't bother. Well, if cooking gave him satisfaction, then clearly he could just, ask everyone else to get out of the kitchen and go and cook. But, you and I, we go and find these cookery books, and so I'm going to try out a different recipe today. Sometimes, we think that's fun, and we try out a different recipe, we try a different meal. Apparently cooking makes us happy. Apparently. See, none of these things I named above, we do because we have a choice. Hobbies, yes, we have a choice. But the other things, we do for our survival, for our existence. So, when I asked my parents, all of these things you've been doing, your parents before them, why do you think I should do the same if clearly you've tried it out and it's not worked out for you? And, it's not just once. Several, many hundreds, many thousands of generations before you have tried it. Why do you ask me to do it again? And that's when that's when they were dumbfounded. They had nothing to say. And then I explained to them, this satisfaction that you're looking for does not exist out there. It does not exist in the things that you do. It does not exist in the material possessions that you buy or you try and possess, you try and take over, the businesses that you try to sustain, the relationships that you try to maintain. That happiness, that satisfaction does not exist in those things. You find that happiness when you stop looking for it. When you stop looking for it, when you stop doing all of these things that you and I do and have been doing, looking for this, that's when you actually find it. And that's what I have found today. Quite frankly, I didn't know what day of the week it was until one of these gentlemen came and reminded me we have a Deshana later on today. And then I remembered, every Sunday we used to do this. I had lost track of time. My God, how free I feel. I didn't know what day of the week it is. I don't know what time it is. When they say, okay, it's time for Dane, then I know it must be around 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock. But when I told you, right, I had a really successful career. But to have a successful career, you need to do certain things. And one of these things is to try and get the most out of the time you have. So one of the things that was really instilled in my mind was, everyone only has 24 hours. It's what you do in those 24 hours that makes a difference. So I then went and read up on various philosophers, the things that they said, various, what do you call them, motivational speakers. I can name quite a few. Jim Rohn, Anthony Robbins, very famous, popular people. These guys used to be my mentors. I've never met them, but I used to watch their videos, many hours of it at a stretch, on YouTube. Sometimes all I did was, get them plugged on my earphones while I was at the gym, exercising. Listen to these guys, tell me about how do I manage my diary, how do I keep fit, how do I invest my money. And I used to maintain a diary, and in my diary, and I've shown some of these kids as well, I used to have a diary. I start my diary Monday to Friday, and I write down all of the things I need to do at work. And then, so before I start my week, I have everything I need to do written down. And then I start numbering it. Actually, there's a guy called Brian Tracy. If you're interested, read up. He's written a book called Eat That Frog. Interesting title. It's because he says, if ever you want to do something, you start with the most ugly or the ugliest thing first. Don't spend your time in doing the riffraff. Don't spend your time just doing the low value things. focus your time on the high value things, but the things that you and I, we don't necessarily like doing. So you try and focus on those things. And so I used to number the things I need to do, A, B, C, D, and then I had a numbering system after it, A1, A2, A3, A4, and therefore I didn't work on A2 until I had finished A1. So my system, I had a system that worked perfectly. And it was this system that helped me be as successful, as I explained to you before. So it was with military precision I planned my career. Investments the same. But then I realized all I get at the end of this is a check or some money that goes into my bank account, and at the end of every month I get a few zeros added at the end of my balance. Now this money I save up in an account, and then what do? If I used to eat so much, I eat some more. If I used to drink so much, I drink some more. If I used to sleep so much, well actually the amount of time I had to sleep now started to reduce. I slept less than I used to, because now I was working hard. I was working really hard, because I thought, man, I can earn some money now. But for that I had to sacrifice my sleep. I had to sacrifice the time I spent with my family. And that had an effect on my relationships. And then a few months later I asked myself the question, hang on a second. So let's go back to basics. I'm trying to do what? Trying to be happy. All I can see me doing is working harder and harder and harder. Am I happy? Really? Ask yourselves that question. Are you really happy? If you are, what are you doing here? What have you come here looking for? If material possessions, if material gains, achievements give you the happiness that you look for, what are you looking for from my Shastra, Nuhan say? Now that I've found happiness, I don't go anywhere else looking for anything else. So now I know, yes, I found happiness. But if you're still here, if you're still coming here looking for something that you haven't found in your day-to-day lives, then clearly you're still looking for it. There's still a question mark in the happiness box. My question mark has now been replaced with a tick. So I'm no longer looking for it, I found it. This realization came along with the understanding of the reality of this world, of everything I see around me, within and around me. You'll have heard the saying, Nahi silena vatang hotu uppajjanti tathagata attakkara tini pada sambuddhena prakashita. What does that mean? See, why do people refer to religion? Why do people try to be religious? Or what do people actually look for in religions or in philosophies? What do they actually look for? Is it not the answer to that box that has happiness next to it? They're looking for something to fill that box. After having worked hard, played hard, earned hard, lived hard, and that happiness box is still, they're not sure. And then they refer to religion. Perhaps religion might have an answer, whether that's Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Catholicism or Buddhism. The main reason that people look for, the main thing that people look for in religion is an answer to fill that box that has the label happiness next to it. I've tried all of the above. I've tried doing it really hard, really well, and I'm still not satisfied with the answer I have in this box. And so I'm still looking for it. So, if you and I are Buddhists, it's important to take a little time to understand what is it then that Buddhism offers to satisfy that question. I remember asking my brother, I said, you and I, we call ourselves Buddhists, right? And he said, yes. So I said, okay. So, according to your understanding, what does the Lord Buddha teach us? And he said, he says, don't kill, don't steal, don't behave in sexual misconduct, don't harm other people, live harmoniously, treat others well, treat others as you would like to be treated. And he said a few things. And then I asked him, okay, great. Yes, he did say all of that. Absolutely did, no question. What about Jesus Christ? Did he say any different? So Jesus Christ said no different to that. Okay, great. What about Prophet Muhammad? If you study the Holy Quran, do you think the Holy Quran says anything different to the above? No? So then what's the difference between Buddhism and Christianity, or Buddhism and every other religion? I mean, you and I, if we don't take the time to understand what Buddhism offers, in addition to all of the above, we might as well be Christians. We might as well be Muslims. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with Christianity or Islam. They're great philosophies, taught and given to humanity by great philosophers and great teachers. People beyond compare to the likes of you and I. But what is it that then the Lord Buddha gave us? What does Buddhism offer that these other religions don't? It's a question worth asking. Nahi silena vatang hotu uppajjanti tathagata. Tathagatayan vahanse. The Tathagata does not come into this world to teach about precepts or the way you conduct yourself. Silvat. The Tathagata does not come into this world to teach us about that. Okay? Then what does he come to teach us about? Attakkarati nipada sambuddhena prakashita. Attakkara. Akuru atak. 8 letters. Tini pada. Pada tunak. 3 words. Sambuddhena. The Samma Sambuddha. Prakashita. That's his discourse. So what is it? What are the 3 words that have 8 letters that the Lord Buddha gave us? I mean, this is why this is important. This is what sets Buddhism apart from every other kind of philosophy out there. Every other kind of philosophy. This is what distinguishes Buddhism from everything else. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. No other religion, no other philosophy teaches about anicca, dukkha, anatta. So if you are to say or to proclaim, I am a student of the Lord Buddha's philosophy, I am his student, I am his disciple, if you do not have an understanding, a proper understanding of anicca, dukkha and anatta, then you have no right to claim that you are a student of his. So is it not worth spending a little time to understand what anicca, dukkha and anatta are? Let's try and do that. What is anicca? Have you heard of that word before? Anicca? Not as you wish. The beauty of these words in the Magadhi language, the Magadhi language or Pali is what the Lord Buddha used to teach the Dhamma, is that the meaning of the words are contained within them. There's a science called etymology. Look it up in the dictionary. Etymology is how words are made up. And the same applies when we study these words in Pali as well. Anicca, icca, na icca or anicca, anicca. What is icca? Have you heard? Now this is where I'm going to have to refer to some Sinhala terms, but I'll give the translations in English as well. Have you heard of the word iccha bhanga? Iccha bhanga. Have you heard that word? What is iccha bhanga in English? Disappointment? Bhanga is to be destroyed. So iccha bhanga is where your hope is lost. You have lost hope. You are disappointed. So iccha is your wish, is what you wish for, what you hope for. Na iccha is nyaya or theory or the principle. So what is na iccha? Anicca. Something that is against the theory or the principle of what you wish it to be. In simple terms, things are not the way you want it to be or you wish it to be. Now that's simple to try and put it that way, but that doesn't say a lot. Let's try and explain that so it makes sense. Think about I'm trying to think of an example that might apply for all of you. Okay, let's take this. Let's take fire. We've all seen fire. You've lit a fire. Very simple example. But simple is always good. As long as it works, right? If you take a matchstick, rub it against the side of the matchbox where you get the friction. So now you have material that ignites or that burns. That is the gunpowder. Is it gunpowder? Some kind of powder on the end of the matchstick. You're giving it friction, and through that you give it heat, and you have oxygen in the air. When the three of them combine, what's the result? Fire. How much did what you wished or what you wanted have an influence on that? If I asked you to write an equation, x plus y plus z equals fire, what would you put into x plus y plus z? What would be the values against x, y and z? So x would be the powder, the gunpowder or whatever that might be. Y being friction and therefore the heat that you get, and Z being oxygen in the air. Now if I said, okay, hang on a second, I want to add something else to that equation, and that is my desire for the result to be fire, do you think I'm doing anything worthwhile by adding that? Is it not the same as adding a zero to that equation? Because as long as you have those three conditions, your result is a fire. Whether you wish it to be or whether you like it to be fire or not has nothing to do with it. Another example. Think about actually this is a good one, especially if you have children. And if you are a child, then think about your own experiences. Your child's performance at school. Right? Think about their last school tests and the result that they got at the school test. If they had to do X amount of study, or so much study, go to so many classes, do so much practice, homework, tuition, to achieve a certain result, and all of these were applied in the right amounts, and the result was a pass, what if that subject was the child's favorite subject, but you would never want them to progress their career in that? Let's say something like, I don't know, when I was growing up, the last thing my parents wanted me to do was something like music or dance. I mean, times might have changed now, but back then they wanted me to be a doctor or a mathematician or an engineer, right? So if I said I was interested in music, I mean, I could study it at school, but to take it any further beyond GCSEs was a no-go. Right? So, but say for the child that was their favorite subject. Let's say dance. For a child, dance is their favorite subject at school. So they put in so much study, they do all the homework that they're asked for, they go to all the classes, take tuition. I don't know if there is tuition for dance, maybe not. But you put all of those factors into an equation, and the end result being an A pass for that exam. It was the child's wish that they got the A pass, but it was the parents' wish that they didn't, because they didn't want the child to progress in that career. They wanted them to progress in math or science. Now, did the parents' wish have any effect on that result? What about the child's wish? Because one could say, well, okay, it's the child that's actually doing all of those things. If the child didn't want that result, then, clearly they could have not gotten it. They could have not done something. Well, if say for example, at the class test, instead of writing the right answers, they've now written all the wrong answers. Clearly they could do that, right? If they didn't want to pass the test, they could just write a lot of rubbish in their paper and then tell their parents, actually, I wrote all the right answers, I don't know what happened. But is it their wish that had anything to do with it, or is it the fact that one of the conditions for them to have passed the test was all of the right answers to be in the right places, and that condition was not fulfilled? See, the Lord Buddha teaches us cause and effect, hetupalavada. He doesn't, when asked the question, "O Lord Buddha, do you teach of existence or non-existence?" The Lord Buddha says, I don't teach of existence, atta, or non-existence, natta. I teach about hetupalavada, or cause and effect. If the causes are there, the effect arises. That's all there is. Provided the right causes are there, it will rain today. Provided the right causes are there, it will not rain today. Whether you wish for it to rain or whether I wish for it not to rain has nothing to do with it. But what's the problem then? The problem is that when we go through in life, we attach ourselves to these results. We attach ourselves to the phenomenon that is the result of these conditions. For example, I might attach myself to the result that I get, that my child gets I expect my child to get a certain result in their exam. I mean, let's be fair, parents, that's what we do. You want your children to do the best they can, and you then set expectations. See, when I talk to young children, I tell them, there's nothing wrong with setting expectations, just make sure you get an insurance policy. What do I mean by that? What's the first thing you do before you put a car out on the road? You get an insurance policy. Why? Because if something happens to and you have no guarantee that nothing's going to happen to the car, that the car's not have an accident, therefore you get an insurance policy. What guarantee do you have that if you set an expectation on something, that expectation is going to be realized? Because if you can do that, that's not an expectation, that's a certainty. If you set an expectation, get an insurance policy. Because if you're setting an expectation, be ready to be disappointed. If you're not ready to be disappointed, don't set expectations. This is how we bring suffering towards us. Things around us happen due to cause and effect. What do? We go and set expectations. This fan, or that fan up there, is turning because there are 101 different conditions that have lined up in the correct shape and form for that fan to be rotating at the speed it is. What are some of those? What might be some of those conditions? There's water that's falling from a waterfall somewhere, that's hitting a turbine, right? That turbine's got, say, 10 blades. This water's falling at a certain speed. What if the water hits something on the way down? That speed is now reduced. Okay, what if one of those blades on the turbine falls off? Or what if there's an issue in one of the electrical circuits? Now that turbine then generates power. It comes through the electric wires. How many kilometers of electric wire do you think it passes on the way here? All the way from wherever it's generated, all the way up to here, right, through the electric circuitry in this building and up there, and it's turning now. You couldn't begin to list the different conditions that need to be lined up for this result to be realized the way it is right now. It would just be too numerous. You could start writing just the right causes for a certain effect, and you'd never end. When we were in Australia, we did an experiment with the children there. I asked them to think of a random number. I said, think of a random number. And I think one boy there said, I think it was a girl actually, she said, was it number 9 or something like that? I said, so okay, so it's number 9, right? She said, yeah, you're not going to change it. No, it's number 9. Okay. So did anyone influence that? I said, don't tell the other person sat next to you what that number is. Just think of the random number and then say it. So it was not influenced by anyone, and they said, right, number 9. I can't remember exactly what number it was, but let's just say it's number 9. And then I asked them, okay, so now you're saying this has not been influenced. I asked her, why did you go for number 9? And then she said, it's because that was my last birthday. So I said, I thought I asked you for a random number. How can this be random now? Because it has been influenced by something else. So just because your last birthday was 9, now it's number 9, okay. So why was 9 your last birthday? It's because that was when, 9 years ago was when your parents decided to have you. Either by choice or, I don't know, out of no choice. However, that's when you were conceived, and 9 years later, here you are. So what about the conditions 9 years ago that determined that you were to be conceived? Perhaps, it had been a year after their parents had got married. Why did the parents wait a year after they got married? Maybe because they had to wait until they could save up to buy a house, so they could settle down before they wanted to have a child. Why did they have to wait a year for that? Well, because, when, the job that the father did, or perhaps the mother was unemployed and just the father worked and on his salary, or his income, or their joint income, whatever, it took them a year to save up for that. And why was that? Well, maybe it's because, when he was studying music at school, his parents said, don't study music, go to study science. Whereas actually, had he gone on to study music, he would have been much more well off. But no, he had to go study science because his parents wanted him to do that. And therefore it took him that long to save up, to buy a house, to have a child, so that 9 years later she's now sat in front of me telling me that her random number is number 9. Is it really random? So this was the second time I did this experiment. The previous time, I asked another girl what her random number was, and we went all the way back. I think so we went through various points in her life, how she was left or right-handed, to the way that her cot was laid down at home, to the way that the architect had designed the house. And you might think, what's the relevance? Well, actually, if you keep asking the question why, or how did that happen to be, how did that happen to be, how did that happen to be, there's no end to it. If you were to list or write down all the different conditions that gave a particular result, believe you me, there would be no end to it. This is why there's a problem with us going and attaching ourselves to a certain result. When you go and hook yourself to a certain result and you say, I want this to be the outcome, you're doing that with no full understanding of all the conditions that need to line up to give you that result. So what happens if one of those conditions change? You're not going to get the result you wanted. What happens then? You're disappointed. So when you set these expectations, aren't you clearly setting yourself up for disappointment? This is what the Lord Buddha says, anicca. Na icca. Things around you doesn't happen because you want them to happen like that. It's because the right conditions are lined up for that to be the result. It's nothing to do with your wish. It's nothing to do with your desire. It's nothing to do with how you want it to be. If the right conditions are there, or forget the word right, if the conditions are there, the result is there. That is hetu palavade. If the right hetu or the causes are there, you get that effect. Palaya, or the fruit. So when you understand this philosophy, do you then go about setting expectations on your houses, your jobs, your education? I mean, that's not to say you don't work as hard as you can. You do work as hard as you can. You do try and maintain your homes. You try and, do the best you can at school. You try and, do all your work on time. You try and manage your time. But you try and do them without setting those expectations. Why? Because there's a danger with setting expectations. The moment you set an expectation, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. And it's this mental disappointment that is the killer. So the Buddha goes on to say, if something is anicca, or not the way you want it to be, the result is what? Dukkha. Anicca dukkha. He talks about 3 kinds of dukkha. Dukkha dukkha, viparinama dukkha, and sankhara dukkha. Remember when we started... Remember when we started, I asked you, why do we eat? And it's to satisfy hunger. Why do we look for shelter? Is to protect ourselves from the elements. Why do we drink? It's because we are thirsty. So clearly there's with this existence that is a human being, the human body that we have come to possess. We are constantly struggling for its sustenance. We're constantly having to do things for its maintenance. Feed it, clothe it, provide shelter, work. Even things like, think about this. If you are married Or if you're in a relationship, why did you get married? Why did you get into a relationship? I mean, I've had this conversation with my wife, or my wife when I had one. Not that I'm divorced, but obviously I don't have one anymore. Okay? What was I looking for in a relationship? When I had lived about 20 odd years of my life, and then asked myself, what else am I missing? My parents helped me as well, and they said, well, soon enough you're going to be all by yourself. You're not going to have anyone to talk to. I never stopped to think, hang on a second. Isn't the problem here that I need someone to talk to? That there's this craving, that there's this dissatisfaction within me, that I'm always looking for someone to engage with? Isn't that the problem? Isn't it the problem that having been born a human being, I need someone to keep me entertained? Why do you get a pet? Is it because you are so compassionate that you want to, you bring a stray animal and feed it? Is it purely out of compassion? Or is it because you need that little bit more, you need a little bit of entertainment, you need that engagement, you need something to keep you occupied? Isn't your mind always looking for something to do, to be engaged with? Could you just sit down for 1 second, or not, well actually, 1 second you'd probably manage that. Could you sit down in a dark room, lock yourself up, no light, nothing, no sound, and be like that? How long can you stay like that for? How long? How long do you think? An hour? You shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't even shake your arms or legs. I mean, seriously, why do people when they sit, why do they start shaking their legs? What does it give them when they do that? What are they looking for? Is that for exercise? Why do people bite their nails? Like sometimes when you on your palms or on some part of your body, you get these like a mole or something, like a wart, and you feel it protrudes from the surface. Imagine you had something like that on the wrist of your palm. From the moment you get that, without you even thinking about it, your other hand is always like itching at it or scratching at it. It happens without you even thinking about it. What are you looking for? Why are you doing that? Why can't you just do nothing? Have you ever stopped to think about this? When we think of Rahatan Vahanse, you think about someone, the picture that comes in your mind is someone that walks, looking down, no interest in looking any further than, 2 or 3 yards ahead of them. And that's great. Why can't you and I do like that? Why are we always looking around? When you're driving in a car, clearly you've got to look around. But why, if you're being driven in a car, if you're a passenger in a car, why do you have to keep looking around? What purpose does that serve? Are you providing directions to the driver? No, but you always want to know what's going on. This is a human condition. There's a human condition that drives the fact that we're always we need to know. We're so curious. We need to find out what's going on. We need the world to engage with us. And we need to engage with the world. Why do we play computer games? Why do we do, quite literally most things, other than eating, sleeping and drinking and, taking medicines when we need it. I mean, that's what a Rahatan Vahanse does. Unless someone invites them to come and teach some Dhamma, what does a Rahatan Vahanse do? Have you heard of Nirodha Samapatti? It's where they go into this deep state of mental samadhi and they stop the arising of thoughts. Thoughts do not arise while you are in a state of mental, that state of mental samadhi called Nirodha Samapatti. But anyone that is not a Rahatan Vahanse is looking for two things, always. Vedana and Sanya. Loosely translated to English as feeling and perception. You want to know something is going on and then you want to identify it. You need to know something's going on. That's why you're always looking around. And then you need to try and put labels against it. This is what's going on. I'm not satisfied with knowing something's going on. I need to know what's going on as well. That's why you look around. That's why that's why you need to shake your legs when you're sat down. Have you ever wondered why do you do that? Because your mind is, if your mind is not being engaged, it's looking for, if I'm not getting it from the outside world, I'm going to generate it myself. Let's start shaking those legs a little bit. Now I can feel something's going on. So isn't the problem that we're suffering from this human condition that we don't see? And the question I asked is, why do you get married? And said, and as I said, I had this conversation with my wife. I got married because my mind was looking for something to engage with. My mind was looking for something to engage with. Her mind was looking for something to engage with. All we did was give each other two minds to engage with. Something to keep each other occupied. It ashames me to look in her face and say, the only reason I got married to you was because I needed someone to keep me occupied. When actually she thought I loved her. And that's what I've been telling her, I really love you, I'll do anything and everything for you. Well, actually all I was looking for was for my mind to be occupied with something. Because otherwise, if I could just sit down in a dark room, do nothing, I wouldn't need anything or anyone else to come and engage me. But I can't. Because my mind's always looking for something new, something different. It gets bored and it gets tired of the same thing. Given over and over and over again, I need something else now. There's loads of teledramas in Sri Lanka, right? I mean, in the UK there are one or two popular ones like EastEnders and Emmerdale, I think is another one. But I know in Sri Lanka, so we watch sometimes on YouTube, and usually we are spoiled for choice, because every week there's like a new one. Question for you is, how many times can you watch the same episode of the same teledrama? How many times? Once. Why can you not watch it a second time? Is it not because you now know what's going to happen? Your mind does not seek. Your mind is still looking for something new, something interesting, but it's not going to get it now because it knows what's going to happen. This is why you now need a new episode. Because if all you needed was some pictures, some music, well, you can get that from the same episode. But your mind needs to be entertained. And for the mind to be entertained, you need to give it new sensations and new feelings. You need to give it something new to identify. Something new to keep it occupied. So isn't that the problem we need to try and solve? The fact that it needs it. But that's not what we've been trying to solve all this time. throughout our lives, whenever we wanted something, we thought the answer to this is to go and find it outside. When we wanted food, when we were hungry, we went and got food. When we wanted shelter, we went and got shelter. When we wanted entertainment, we went and watched a movie. Went out with friends. Went out for a meal. Went and had a chat. But every time we needed it, what did we do? You just put a plaster on it. You never went and actually solved the underlying problem, which is, I'm still looking for it. I'm still yearning it. I still need it. That is what Buddhism tries to cure. The root cause. Because all of the other things you can keep doing, and you'll keep doing forever and ever and ever. How many movies have you watched now? How many teledramas have you watched? Are you now satisfied? You'll still go home and watch another one tonight, and tomorrow, and the day after. So think about a friend. How many days in a row will you keep calling them and just have a chat with them before they tell you, yeah, okay, I'll call you in another week or so, right? I mean, don't ring me tomorrow. You've already rung me like 3 times now already. Because they get bored. Same voice, you're talking about the same things. No, why? Because their mind is now looking for something new, something different. And so is yours. Are venasak? Always looking for something different. Why are we looking for something different? That's what keeps our mind going. And that's where the Lord Buddha gives a cure for. That process of looking for something new, something interesting, something exciting. Because unless you treat that, we are going to go through in samsara always looking for something. Always looking for happiness, always looking for something to engage with. But we never ultimately find it. That's the problem. As human beings, we've been looking it for throughout many births. As devas, we've been looking it for over many births. As brahmas, in the apayas. In fact, the things that we did to find that interest, that satisfaction, the things that we did, the akusalas that we did, took us into the hells, and we've suffered plenty for it. And yet today we are still looking for it. So this is why the Lord Buddha says, once you realize that everything around you is anicca, is cause and effect, and therefore dukkha is cause and effect. It's not how you want it to be. All you see around you is just, things just happen because the right causes line up to give that effect. And then if you go and hook yourself on it, the end result is disappointment, and therefore dukkha, suffering. But going through that process is anatta, not anatma. Anatta. One interpretation today to the word anatta is soullessness. That's what I learned at Dhampasana. I went to an English Dhampasana in Sri Lanka. I went to a Sinhala one and then to an English one as well. And the word anatma was taught to me as soullessness. When actually someone goes to the Lord Buddha and asks, "Oh Lord Buddha, do you preach about a soul or do you not preach about a soul?" And he says, "I preach of neither. I don't say there is a soul, I don't say there is no soul either." But then today, the translation we give to anatta is anatma, soullessness. When clearly he said, I don't talk about a no soul. What he does say is anatta though. Na atta, useless. Atta is artha. Na artha, arthayak na. Useless, essenceless, meaningless. Well, clearly it's meaningless, because if everything around you, everything that you can perceive is cause and effect, Everything you see around you has been conditioned by causes. And then you go and attach yourself to that with expectation. And all you get out of that is disappointment. What's the point of doing that? Stop doing it. This is why he says that process is simply useless. Give it up. See, this is the meaning of anicca, dukkha and anatta that the Lord Buddha teaches, that you don't get from any other religion. Because all other religions talk about, do ping or do merits, acquire merits that will take you to heavens, where actually the Lord Buddha says there's nothing wrong with going to heavens, but even time there is limited. What happens when that time runs out? Going into heavens is like putting money into a bank account. You can keep withdrawing until when? Until it comes back with a zero balance. You check your balance in the ATM and it goes zero. You can't withdraw any money after that. Then it's time for you to come back down. And the problem is this as well. Living as human beings, there are plenty of opportunities to acquire merits, right? You can give dane to Hamudru, to the temple, right? You can help the poor people. You can teach someone. There's lots of opportunities. What about in the Deva worlds? Do you think you can go and help people, the Devas? Do you think they need anything from you? They've got everything they need. Whether it's food or, the ways to travel places, they don't travel like you and I. They wish they want to be somewhere, then the next moment they're there. That's how they travel. So, not unlike you and me, they don't need money in those places. They don't need food or shelter like you and I do. They get all of that through the merits that they've acquired. So, when you're in a Deva world, you don't have the opportunity like you do now to acquire those merits. So you are no longer depositing money into that bank account. So as soon as that currency runs out, that money runs out, you're back into the human worlds, or even worse, into the apayas. In other deshanas we've talked about apayas. I encourage you to try and listen to some of them as well. And as adults, even if you haven't watched some of the videos, on YouTube, just type in hell and watch some of these. Because these descriptions of apayas and the way those videos have been animated are texts that have been taken from the Tripitaka. So if you believe in the text in the Tripitaka, then think twice before you reject and say, no, that can't be true. Do you have any questions from what we've talked about so far? Okay. What I wanted to do today was really to get an introduction, to take a first step to our discussion. You see, don't forget that you are very, very, very and extremely fortunate. Why do I say this? Most of you here understand Sinhala as well. Some of you don't, but that's okay. But most of you do. I think most of you have been born to Buddhist families, so you have a Buddhist background. Because chances are, if you weren't, you wouldn't be encouraged, or you wouldn't have you clearly wouldn't be encouraged to come and listen to some of these deshana and to listen to Shastra Nuhanse's deshana. Your senses are in perfect working order. What if your ears didn't work? What if you were deaf? You wouldn't be able to listen to any of this? In one of the previous deshana, and I think it's probably it was uploaded to Skype, so if you can get a copy of that and listen to it, we talk about how difficult the Shastra Nuhanse says it is to be born a human being. He gives a metaphor, and he tries to explain the probability of someone being born a human being after they have died. And if you can try and listen to that, and you might have even heard it in one of the singers. Have you heard of that? Do you need Shastra Nuhanse to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer? Do you need his teaching for that? But you do need his teaching if you want to attain Nibbana. What guarantee do you have that the next time you come back into human world, if you do, that we are going to have Shastra Mahanse's Dhamma? What guarantee do you have? See, now is the time for those that are lucky enough, and you are, to get this done. Listen to this Dhamma, take it on board, practice it and attain Nibbana. Practice this life. I'm not saying become a monk or a nun. What I am saying though is, put these teachings into your lives. Practice it. If you're a Buddhist, don't ever, when someone asks you, how is your teacher's teaching any different to any others, just say, oh, I don't know. Sounds like they're all the same to me. Don't do injustice to your Shastra Mahanse like that. No, this is the perfect one. He didn't spend 6 years undergoing extreme asceticism for nothing. He did that for you and me. He didn't give up his family. He was he was destined to be an emperor. He didn't give up all of that for you and I to just be ungrateful for that and just say, oh yeah, well, I was born a Buddhist, I'll live a Buddhist, I'll die a Buddhist, so what, I don't know, I've never gained anything out of it. Take some time to understand this teaching of the Lord Buddha. Take some time to understand the real meaning behind the teaching. Because it's only through that you can seek that liberation that you've been looking for. This is why I said at the start, right? From what I can see, you're all very successful people. So, you clearly have successful lives. Whether that's work, study, family lives. But have you found that happiness you've been looking for? If you are still looking for that answer to fill that box with, that has a label called happiness next to it, take some time to study what the Lord Buddha teaches. Take some time to study anicca, dukkha and anatta. And then you will realize whether an answer to that really exists or whether it's all but a delusion. And whether that happiness is outside or whether that happiness is something you find when you stop looking for it outside. Okay, one last time, if you have any questions, do ask now, otherwise we will bring the discussion to an end for today. May you all attain Nibbana in this birth itself. Samma Sambuddha Saranai.